Hello, I'm Michelle Nooch from the Center for International Studies at MIT. We're delighted that you could attend the Starr Forum on the very important topic of rebuilding Haiti. Since the devastating earthquake on January 12th, there have been weeks of improbable rescues, tearful reunions, and astonishing displays of resilience. And sadly, there's the ever-present and ever-rising death toll, which the Haitian government estimates may reach 300,000. Still, many, including President Clinton, say that Haiti, although shattered, can overcome this tragedy and reemerge as a stronger and better nation. The question, though, is how does the international community help Haiti create a future different from the generations of misery it has known? Today, we have 4 MIT experts who will speak to this issue. After the formal discussion, we will open it up for Q&A with the audience. Please remember to come down and use the mics in the aisle so we can capture everything on video. And also a reminder that if you'd like to learn about upcoming Starr Forums, please sign up on our email list on the back table, where you'll also find a flyer about our next Starr Forum and also related materials to today's talk. Now, I'd like to introduce you to our speakers. We have Erica James, Associate Professor of Anthropology at MIT. Her research interests focus on medical and psychiatric anthropology, gender and violence, religion and healing, and issues of race, human rights, and the ethics of politics of democratization projects. One of her projects involves examining U.S. foreign policy toward Haitian refugees as an index of the changing nexus of global concerns for sovereignty, security, and liberty. Her forthcoming book, Democratic Insecurities, Violence, Trauma, and Intervention in Haiti, will be published in May 2010 by the University of California Press. Next, we have Cherie Miot Abbanat, who is a lecturer in the Department of Urban Studies and Planning and the Department of Architecture. She co-chairs DUSP's Undergraduate Committee, and she specializes in cities, technical policies, and planning issues. Prior to MIT, she worked in the regulatory policy field and later as a senior consultant to state, federal, and international policymakers. In response to the Haiti earthquake, and because she is a Haitian American, she co-founded a nonprofit, Hearts and Hands to Haiti, that utilizes networks already on the ground in Haiti to help deliver food and medical supplies to aid workers. Hearts and Hands to Haiti has delivered 2 tons of food and medical supplies to medical teams in 3 locations. We also have Joachim, who is a visiting scientist at the MIT Media Lab, where he currently co-teaches the special project class New Media Projects for Haiti. He headed the Media Lab's Ecology Media Research Group in exploring new roles sensor networks might play in enhancing human interactions with natural environments. He has taught computer architecture and speech processing courses at Tulane University. Prior to Tulane, he was principal investigator of speech keyword spotting and R&D projects at Sanders Lockheed Martin, as well as the lead hardware design engineer of PC subsystems at Zenith Data Systems. And finally, we have Michel DeGraff, a native of Haiti who is associate professor of linguistics at MIT. His research focuses on the grammars of Creole languages, Haitian Creole in particular, and how all languages change over time through the mental mechanisms whereby children and adults learn languages. Some of DeGraff's recent writings militate against the widespread practice in Haiti to teach and test students, mostly in French, when the general population speaks only Haitian Creole, Haiti's national language. This practice is at the root of the miserable failure of Haiti's traditional school system vis-a-vis the general population. Please join me in welcoming our speakers. Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you so much, Michelle, for inviting me to give the talk. It's an unfortunate occasion to me, but I appreciate the opportunity to share my work. I'm going to deliver a paper that concerns the issues of Haiti's post-conflict transition, but it speaks to some of the issues that may come up as Haiti moves from emergency to reconstruction in the aftermath of the earthquake. So the title is Transitioning from Emergency to Reconstruction, The Challenges of Psychosocial Trauma. In this talk, I reflect on the unintended consequences of humanitarian and development aid to fragile and failed states. The story that I'm about to tell you is not a new one. You will have heard much of it before, whether in relation to critiques of humanitarian and development assistance, or in relation to the challenges Haiti and its citizens have faced in seeking to consolidate democracy and economic growth.
In recounting this narrative, however, my goal is to shed light upon the potential challenges that may emerge as reconstruction efforts commence in Haiti in response to this latest disaster. Haiti and its citizens have been the objects of military, humanitarian, and economic interventions since the nation won its independence from French colonizers in 1804. From the 19th century to the present, the First Black Republic has struggled with cycles of political and economic upheaval, foreign occupation, dictatorship, and continued environmental decline. Since the 1986 ouster of dictator Jean-Claude Duvalier, Haitians have used the term insécurité, which is insecurity, to describe the cycles of political violence, crime, and economic deterioration that have plagued the nation as it attempts to consolidate its democracy. Broadly, the term insecurity also characterizes the uncertainties of labor and livelihood and the rise in technological and environmental hazards that can plague fragile or failed states. The recent earthquake in Haiti has prompted an expansion and intensification of the role of foreign and domestic governmental and non-governmental organizations to manage the crisis and to begin planning Haiti's reconstruction. As such efforts unfurl, the fluid and chaotic conditions evoke comparisons to the circumstances prompting the U.S.-led military and humanitarian interventions to restore democracy in Haiti in 1994. Such comparisons are especially salient given the escape of 4,000 prisoners from the state penitentiary during the earthquake, many of whom undoubtedly have been involved in activities to destabilize security in Haiti in the past. On October 16, 1990, Haitians elected former priest Jean-Bertrand Aristide president in the country's first legitimate democratic electoral process. On September 30, 1991, the 7,000-member Haitian Armed Forces implemented a coup d'etat that exiled Aristide. During this political crisis, the terror apparatus was joined by thousands of paramilitary attachés and local criminals known as Zenglendos, who deployed illegal detention, torture, disappearances, rape, gang rape, forced incest, and murder against thousands of grassroots activists and their families. Thousands of Haitians were killed, and tens of thousands fled by boat, seeking asylum in the U.S., Latin America, and other Caribbean nations. Over 300,000 internally displaced Haitians took refuge in the provinces and in others' homes. They also sought sanctuary on the grounds of churches and other civic spaces in the cities. Between 1995 and 2000, I spent more than 27 months living in Haiti, following victims of human rights abuses who called themselves victimes in their quest for justice, reparations, and social rehabilitation. I worked as a physical therapist with rape survivors at a women's clinic in Martissan, which is a slum of Port-au-Prince located near the epicenter of the recent earthquake. I also trained at the Mars Klein Center for Neurology and Psychiatry at the State University Hospital to understand better how psychological distress manifests in Haiti. Finally, I worked at the Human Rights Fund, a political development assistance program funded by the United States Agency for International Development that housed a rehabilitation program for torture survivors and their dependents. I observed the fund's activities, facilitated therapy groups for traumatized victims, and studied its beneficiaries' trauma portfolios. These are case files containing affidavits, medical records, receipts, and other forms of documentation that verify a person's victim status. Then in 2004, following the second ouster of President Aristide, I observed the conditions of Haitian detainees at the Chrome Service Processing Center in Miami and at a day treatment facility for unaccompanied minors that was run by a faith-based organization for the Office of Refugee Resettlement. And finally, from 2006 until 2009, I have conducted research at another faith-based organization here in Boston that has provided services to Haitian refugees and immigrants for 30 years. In both Haiti and in the Haitian diaspora, the specter of psychological trauma remains a significant factor that must be addressed in any crisis and reconstruction effort. However, in doing so, institutions and organizations engaged in providing humanitarian and development responses must examine how the cultures of their own institutions can give rise to practices that may undermine the effectiveness of their interventions. So the philosopher Giorgio Agamben has claimed that the refugee has become the new icon of the modern age, an individual frequently depicted in caricature as a global emblem of displacement, of victimization, poverty, and vulnerability. The representations that flow from such a perspective focus on these persons' lack of basic needs, eclipsing the way in which these individuals' political identities and statuses as citizens remain tied to a sovereign nation-state, whether that state is secure, fragile, or failed. So photos or images of their suffering can reduce victims of natural or human-authored calamities to fundraising tools that provoke compassion in distant charitable donors. As Agamben argues, humanitarian organizations can only grasp human life in the figure of bare or sacred life, and therefore, despite themselves, maintain a secret solidarity with the very powers they ought to fight. While driven by opposite intentions than the terror apparatus, both during and after the conflict period in Haiti, the humanitarian and development aid apparatus abstracted, translated, and transformed the suffering of victims of human rights abuses in their efforts to document such abuses and to procure assistance for these victims, thereby creating these trauma portfolios. So what I call trauma portfolios are both symbolic and material representations of exceptional forms of suffering in the nation where insecurity has become the rule. These trauma portfolios have circulated as commodities and as currency in a humanitarian market, not only for victims, but also for the interveners. In effect, by packaging the suffering of others, you are able to, of course, procure resources to help them, but there's something that happens when you transform an individual's suffering in an objectified form that creates a different identity for victims that I'll discuss now. So aid interveners presented these portfolios also as tangible representations of their institutional competence and accountability in implementing post-conflict reconstruction initiatives. I characterize such practices and the unintended processes that flowed from them by the term bureaucraft. While aid resources flow, such practices can produce multiple forms of capital, both for the aid giver and the recipient of charitable and development gifts. Bureaucraft practices can also engender the brokering of bare life by individual, organizational, and institutional experts with the social and political capital to manipulate these humanitarian markets. But as aid resources diminish in chronically insecure states, so-called victims may appropriate such practices to draw new attention to their plight. So like conceptions of contemporary witchcraft, bureaucraft practices can generate accusations of malfeasance, corruption, and produce social conflict, especially if humanitarian aid is perceived as having been accumulated through occult or hidden means. So in my work, I traced what I call the social life of humanitarian aid, and I observed how these processes of translating suffering, brokering suffering, and accusation resulted in conflict that unfolded between individuals in Haiti, between victims and the agencies that were operating in the aid apparatus, but also between members of the aid apparatus themselves. And it became especially acute when humanitarian resources were diminishing and funding was scarce. In 1998, 4 years after the post-conflict transition had begun, resources earmarked for victims of human rights abuses were diminishing, despite the population's ongoing challenges with physical and psychological trauma, with underemployment, and with waves of political and criminal violence. In Martissant, for example, rape survivors revealed that before a local representative of a Haitian women's rights organization would help them get their cases documented, they were forced to pay this broker a fee for her services. In other cases, victims represented the stories of suffering of their family members or their associates as their own in order to convince aid workers to include them in their rehabilitation programs. In these instances, the identity of victims of human rights abuses became an object of consumption, generating temporary forms of recognition and citizenship in the aid apparatus. But this only occurred because the Haitian state was not able to take care of its citizens in the way that one could hope. As international and national victim assistance resources diminished, members of victims' associations accused each other of not being legitimate victims and even of collusion with the terror apparatus. In another example, the sons of a rape survivor whose family members had fled for refuge to the Dominican Republic, they returned from exile with weapons. These young adults formed a gang in the Martissant neighborhood that was aimed at suppressing pro-democracy activity in the zone. Martissant residents accused these sons and their associates of extorting regular commissions from other victims. Such fees were required after the men facilitated victims' contact with a French NGO that was working in the neighborhood to provide scholarships and other social support. In another example, a Martissant woman who was a beneficiary of the Human Rights Fund had been shot 5 times by a member of the military. Disgruntled victims in the area alleged that she was the shooter's mistress rather than someone who was attacked because of her political status. However, her shooting was reportedly not an act of domestic violence. Rather, the shooting was intended to kill her because she was accused of being a loup-garou, a vampire-like creature that travels by night in non-corporeal form to suck the blood and life force from others. So these stories are meant to say that under conditions of scarce aid and growing insecurity, those whose own lives were recognized as bare resorted to victimizing other victims in the scramble to maintain and direct flows of aid. Ultimately, Haitian victims learned to employ these bureaucrat practices and even accusations of malfeasance in order to resist aid policies that recognized them only through the lens of their victimization, of the need, their bare needs or bare life, or as political subjects, but not as both at the same time. Between 1997 and 1999, the Human Rights Fund distributed benevolent aid to eligible victims for a limited period of time, including legal counseling, complete medical care, housing assistance, and other benefits, but not basic subsistence support. One beneficiary I knew characterized this policy by lamenting that at the fund, we can speak, but we can't eat. Then in late spring 1999, an organization called the September 30th Victims Movement, which was commemorating the 1991 coup d'etat, the organization protested the opacity of bureaucratic decision-making at the Human Rights Fund's rehabilitation program by posting anti-Human Rights Fund leaflets on the outer gates of the building in which it was located and all throughout the city's walls and the gates of other NGOs in Port-au-Prince. This public protest occurred at the same time that a press release denouncing the Human Rights Fund appeared in one of the pro-democracy newspapers. The newspaper article was entitled "Ne pas manger, manger oublié, déclaration mouvement victime 30 septembre." So we don't eat, food is forgotten, declaration of the September 30th Victims Movement. So the organization is known by the acronym mobi. mobi charged the U.S. government with planning the 1991 coup d'etat. Then they accused the U.S. military interveners of stealing the terror apparatus documents, which are known as the FRAP documents, to hide the role of the U.S. government and members of the Haitian elite in implementing the coup and destabilizing democracy in Haiti. The Movitron organization also denounced the Human Rights Fund's physicians for having decided to wipe out victims by changing their prescriptions and giving them whatever the doctors wished. So what this referred to was when the rehabilitation resources were diminishing, the fund's medical officers decided to switch to generic rather than brand name drugs in order to save money. But in the absence of food, the medications produced negative side effects in some of the beneficiaries of the program. However, in keeping with the long-standing historical perception in Haiti of those who have practiced malevolent magic, the statement accused the fund doctors of deliberately poisoning victims and indirectly of appropriating the excess money or the savings for their own personal use. The declarations requested that the clinicians be expelled from the fund. Finally, Mobi Trance press release denounced the Préval administration, 'cause he was president at that time as well, for pursuing a neoliberal program that sought to privatize the national industries, the cement factory, the airport, ports, and other institutions, as well as for failing to involve victims in government processes until decisions had already been made. So all of these opaque bureaucratic practices were linked to the plight of victims of human rights abuses. And this is a quote. "Instead of the heads of state arresting the assassins that repress us, they'd rather separate victims' organizations in the scattering of a few crumbs here and there that can't resolve anything for victims, which causes trouble between victims' organizations and demoralizes them, leaving them confused. We ask on behalf of all victims' organizations that are not involved in following behind these crumbs of money, which causes them to lose their dignity, to join together in order to find true justice and reparations." One lesson of these and other episodes that I haven't recounted here is that Haiti's victims are not passive objects of intervention, despite their unequal capacity to influence policies, bureaucratic procedures, or markets. With limited avenues toward global or national citizenship, victims brokered bare life to survive. By directly linking aid practices to those that maintain a secret solidarity with the very powers they ought to fight, victims made explicit the manner in which modern democracies are founded upon biopolitical processes that include bare life only in limited fashion without granting full citizenship. As Haiti moves forward from this current crisis to continue consolidating democracy, promoting economic growth, and inculcating justice, transparency, and accountability in governmental and non-governmental institutions, one hopes that the international interveners supporting such transitions will hold themselves to that same standard. Establishing and maintaining security is of paramount urgency, as is sustained effort to bolster Haitian institutions. However, such processes cannot be founded upon practices that depict Haiti and its citizens solely through a lens of victimization, failure, or vulnerability. Such a lens will assuredly reinforce the political economy of trauma rather than resolve the conditions that gave rise to cycles of insecurity and trauma in the first place. It is perilous to consider Haiti and its citizens solely as clients, recipients of welfare or charity, or as victims. This lesson is all the more urgent given that there are several populations affected by the earthquake whose status is similar to that of Haiti's victims of human rights abuses following the 1994 restoration of democracy. As was the case then, the government of Haiti possesses little capacity to provide security, civil services, and medical care for its citizens. Women are increasingly vulnerable to insecurity. The number of orphans has increased exponentially. Thousands of new amputees of all ages require multiple forms of rehabilitation to aid them in rebuilding their lives. But if these populations are singled out for greater psychological, physical, economic, and other social supports because they are considered at risk, but if similar opportunities are not made available for all Haitians to flourish as productive citizens, it is possible that these groups may become subject to further stigma and resentment in their communities, as were the victims of human rights abuses from the coup and post-coup years. These issues of population management, the regulation and distribution of resources, identity, and accountability are important considerations for Haitians in Haiti and its diaspora, and for those who would aid them in rehabilitation and reconstruction efforts. However, such concerns should not overshadow attention to the physical, psychosocial, and spiritual effects of trauma. Trauma can result from ruptures in the routines of daily life, whether caused by natural, industrial, or human authorship. While those who survive such ruptures may experience acute trauma, providers of care to victims can also experience secondary trauma during and after a crisis. Trauma and emotional distress are also phenomena that are culturally mediated and experienced in bodily ways. So whereas some view the devastation caused by the earthquake as an opportunity to create a blank slate in Haiti, the stories recounted here suggest that without effective strategies to address these traumas, the power of memory and the embodied legacies of acute victimization will render attempts to mitigate suffering and to promote reconstruction and development ineffective. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Wow. So she touches a nerve, a number of nerves. So, who am I? And why am I up here? I'm sorry. I'll just start with the basics. How's that? So my dad's from Haiti. My dad is from Gonaïves. He's an engineer, born and raised in Haiti, and forever. Not forever. Oh, thank you. My family's been in Haiti for hundreds of years. That side, anyway. So he's civil engineer, Haitian born and raised. He went to school in Port-au-Prince for his upper levels of schooling, and you'll hear a little bit about how he was schooled from Michel soon. What else can I tell you? Then he came to the United States to finish his schooling, his engineering schooling. At that time, you either sent your children to, if you had the means, to Europe or to the United States. Actually, he did both. He was in France for a while as well. My father worked on a number of different large infrastructure projects, including the first and I think only hydroelectric dam in Haiti, which is controversial. He's built many roads and bridges throughout the country. My mother's American RN, and around the time of the 60s decided that she was going to do sort of a Peace Corps. She's a nurse, and so she did sort of a nursing Peace Corps program and landed in Haiti at the Albert Schweitzer program that was there. Fell in love with a Haitian, if you can believe it, and also fell in love with the country and the people. My mother's very close in spirit or in heart to the people in Haiti that she worked with, and she set up a number of clinics all around the area and worked with not just Western medicine, but also trying to pull the medicine doctor from the mountain into what she was doing and try to work together with the Hugon at that time. So that's a little bit about who I am. My parents raised us mostly in the United States, but then moved us to Haiti for a time where my father went about doing more infrastructure projects. My mom was at home and opened several more clinics. So we had parades of people through our house as I was growing up. So as I was preparing for this talk, I was thinking about this idea of trauma. And trauma opens a door, and sometimes. Many times big changes happen after a traumatic event, and we can see evidence of that here in our country, in the United States, as well as other countries around the world. Big policies get implemented, big ideas get pushed through, and laws get passed. But in a quest to find solutions and get them into action, we can't forget about what's already in place in Haiti. We can't forget about our homegrown knowledge in Haiti, our language, what works best in Haiti, what's already working, and maybe fragile, but still working. So I've put my ear to the ground, and I've tried to figure out who my networks are, both here in the United States, who my school networks still up and going, and trying to tap into that homegrown knowledge from the people who have what I call Haitian eyes, the Haitian eyes. So here's what I'm hearing. Some outsiders want to come in and use a bottom-up approach. They want to fly in new technology, water filtration systems, water collection systems, solar panels, micro wind turbines, all of which I think are great, by the way, to various locations around Haiti. So this is this fly-in approach. They want to fly in goods and services, tents, shoes, clothing, food. Drop them in. Fly in sustainable goods and services, disease-resistant seeds for the people of the mountains, the farmers. housing structures that can last, vaccinations for everyone and anyone. Sometimes they want to fly out things like children. Still others want to flood the markets with rice, not knowing that they're crashing the food market already in Haiti. So all these things can be great and all these things can be problematic. Still others want a strong actor to take a strong role in building the country. And these strong actors come with different lenses. So we have former President Bill Clinton, U.S. Special Envoy to Haiti, with economic solutions for sustainable job development. Former President Bush with free market ideas and big business opportunities. Hillary Clinton with ideas about policies that can protect or make open American markets to Haitian goods and services, and even some of us, Wyclef Jean, Haitian American leader, artist. But some people want a big actor. But who are these big actors? Other actors include strong NGOs, Partners in Health, CARE, Red Cross, World Hope, Catholic Charity, Save Our Children, Save the Children, Oxfam, strong state actors, US, Canada, France, UN, EU, the list goes on. But I wonder if there might be another approach. And I wonder about seeing with Haitian eyes. So what I'm hearing from Haitians and Haitian Americans in my networks are a couple things, and I'll be brief because I do want to move on to the other speakers. Remember our Haitian history. Remember our history with the US. They sell us rice and destroy our rice markets. We can't compete with their subsidized prices for rice. Remember how many people have trouble trusting the government because of killings, kidnappings, and brutal force. Government, at the same time, government, ideas about government. We must work together towards strengthening the state of Haiti. In other words, no martial law for Haiti. And some of these points, obviously, people are debating. Haiti needs a strong government to control and manage the rebuilding process. Let's see, what else? Cancel Haiti's international debt, restore Haiti's tariffs to protect its agricultural sector, raise the minimum wage to $3 a day. Can you imagine? $3 a day. That's what they're asking for, or higher. Other ideas, Haiti, again, history, politics. We're tired of the U.S. heavy hand that has affected the population in so many different ways. For example, destroying our pigs to replace them with Arkansas hogs that were not adapted to the Haitian environment and the needs of the peasants. So these are just some of the ideas that goes on. And then there are other people have other ideas. I'll just mention a few. Can we have a galvanizing event for Haiti? A World Cup. Can we have the World Cup? How fabulous is that? Can we host something like the World Expo, which Haiti actually hosted in 1949? Could Haiti host a Summer Olympics as part of its rebuilding process? And then one other comment, lessons to learn. Instead of seeing Haiti as weak or as a victim, why not think about the lessons that can be learned from Haiti in this crisis? Why not talk about our solidarity, our discipline, our resilience? Why aren't those the words that you hear or think about when you think Haiti? So this is a complicated mix. So what is my response? I'm both American and Haitian, although I have American citizenship. What's my response, and where do I fit in? I have to tell you, it's been a little tricky. But the big idea, and I can't say it's mine because I've worked with so many amazing people, work with what's already on the ground. What are the existing networks? Which networks are working? Which networks are effective? And which networks can we strengthen? How can we use communication as a tool? I found in my own experience with this earthquake, finding my friends, finding my family on the ground, we used communication, we used email, we used social networking. Those were important tools to us in finding our friends and family. We also found trucks that could be used. We found boats that could be used. We found hospitals we could use just with texting and email and Facebook. One friend found another friend with a truck for medical teams and delivering services around Port-au-Prince when it was desperately needed. My family network, we used different networks to find out who needs help, who's injured, who has access to what resources. Again, trucks seem to be key. One family friend found a truck for water filtration equipment and found out where that water filtration equipment should go. The other thing I did was I formed an initiative with some Haitian school friends of mine, different backgrounds, different creeds, and different places in the world. And what we did was we linked our initiative to an existing nonprofit so that we could funnel funds through this nonprofit. People could write tax-deductible donations, and at the same time, this nonprofit, which is a faith-based nonprofit, would cover all of our administrative costs for us. Through that initiative, we have airlifted 2 tons of food to Haiti in 3 different locations. We got the food in, we got the food on the ground, and we got the food to people we already do on the ground. What else? Blogging, bringing the stories of people I know out into a place where they can be shared and added to. Some of my memories aren't so great sometimes. And I'm continuing to partner with some of the missionary networks, trying to identify where to bring goods. We found Missionary Flights International to be a great way to bring goods in because it's a cargo plane. You go with the cargo on the plane. It's not too comfortable, but you can bring lots in. And Sunday we have another team member going and with more food to bring and medical supplies. So here at MIT, so what about MIT? So Haiti is near and dear to my heart. MIT happens to be close to my heart as well. I know that's not a real popular thing to say here at MIT. We love to hate this place. But as we begin to identify rebuilding ideas, one approach may be to work with these networks that we've already identified, work with the people who have other networks on the ground. Our gifts are great here at MIT. Solar backpacks, for example, building and materials that are sustainable, agricultural projects, reforestation projects that have been tried out in other areas of the world. And one example one other initiative I've been working with is Fab Lab, maybe for Haiti. The point is not that these are maybe the best technology. The point is let's try them, let's test them, but let's work through the networks that are already on the ground and the people that know the places and spaces on the ground. Tonight will be there's another effort to think about more ideas. And I want to turn over to Dale now because I think Dale's class and his projects and things he's coming with also will be instrumental in moving and partnering MIT with efforts to rebuild Haiti. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I was once in Amsterdam and at a conference, and on the day off, actually it wasn't Rotterdam. There's a marketplace, and in the marketplace there was a person selling some sort of knife, a very specialized knife. And he would show the knife, and he would say, with this knife you can do this, and then he would show what you could do with it, and then with this knife you could do that, and then with this knife you could do this. And this guy was spending the whole time describing what you could do with this knife that he was selling. And I thought it was interesting how much of this person's mind was revolving, or at least his salesmanship was revolving around the knife. I'm a technologist, so I'll sort of do the same thing too. I'll talk about technology in my small frame, my way of thinking. So technology doesn't solve everything, but it solves a lot of things. Okay, so I'll build on what Erica said and what Cherie has said in many ways. So if I can figure this out. Full screen. All right. Good. So my remarks are fairly short and brief, at least in what I'm trying to say. So the first point is that energy is at the core of Haiti's problems in many ways. It's at the core of many societal problems that Haiti has. And in order to be effective in whatever happens in Haiti, in reconstructing Haiti, in putting Haiti back on its feet, we have to think about the energy problem. Also, in order to do anything about the environment, so Haiti has a big environmental problem. I'll skim through that, but it has a big environmental problem. In order to do anything about the environmental problem, we have to address the energy problem. Okay, so it's a necessary component. It will be a necessary step in solving the environment problem. It's not sufficient, but necessary. And also, I'd like to suggest that modern communication, a very strong and robust communication infrastructure, will go a long ways in rethinking Haiti in the 21st century and addressing some of the problems of actually deforestation, education, public health, and so forth. So these are the 3 points that I'll talk about briefly. So again, energy. So energy, I think, will contribute quite a bit in solving the environmental problem, but is also an enabler for a robust communication system. To put things into perspective, when the earthquake happened, the first thought, first of all, it was painful because I have relatives and I've lost relatives. But then, the thought came through that it's just another earthquake in a string of many. But it isn't. It really isn't. If you look at Katrina and the number of people lost through Katrina and the damage to the infrastructure and the percentage of this damage and the impact of the damage in the regional government or the federal government, and you compare that to Haiti, can't compare. If you look at the tsunami and what it did to individual countries, okay, so the tsunami killed thousands of people, but in different countries. But if you compare the impact to the state, to the state itself, it doesn't. As bad as it was, it still doesn't compare to the impact of this earthquake in Haiti. This earthquake is one of its kind. It's really, really one of its kind. So what I'd like to do is to sort of run through several countries, so just to compare. I picked a few. I picked 7. I picked Belgium and Switzerland because they're small countries in Europe, and I think we can look at them as model countries in some ways. Rwanda is about the same size in terms of square kilometers as Haiti. It's actually the sister country to Burundi, and they're both about the same. And also, if you look at Rwanda's history, it had a very strong disaster, a genocide in its history, and now it's recovering from that. So I think it's a nice country to compare. Massachusetts has almost the exact same area as Haiti. Okay, so when we think of Haiti, we can think of Massachusetts in terms of land, and then compare somewhat. Israel is a little bit smaller, but it compares in terms of density, the number of persons per square kilometer. Dominican Republic is the 2/3 of the island, the other 2/3 of the island where Haiti is. And so these are the 3 countries. If we look at population, Switzerland, a little bit less. Rwanda, a little bit more. Massachusetts, about, I think, three quarters. Israel, a little bit less. Dominican Republic, interestingly enough, almost the same. Almost the same, but twice the amount of area. So I think when we think about, economy and other issues, I think it's important to realize that. Belgium, a little bit more. So the density, if you look at the density of population density, Haiti and Israel are fairly close. Haiti and Dominican Republic are almost half. In terms of energy consumption, you can't see Haiti on the chart because it's very small. Energy consumption is a measure of what? I mean, it's a measure of progress? Not sure. I think in this case, energy consumption might actually be a good thing that is very small to start with. And you can see also the other countries have diversified, and I'll talk a little bit more about the energy in Haiti. Here's a per capita, per person energy consumption. So the top two lines that you see are, so the top one is Belgium, and then Switzerland, and then Israel. And then the three bottom ones are Dominican Republic, Haiti, and Rwanda. And a little bit closer, you see how Rwanda's how Dominican Republic's energy consumption rises, and how Haiti's stays almost constant. Okay, the population of Haiti went up a little bit, but its consumption didn't go up by much. Now, if we look more specifically at the consumption of petroleum products, oil. Of course, you have Belgium on top, has a lot more industries than the rest, and you have Switzerland, and you have Israel, and then you have the Dominican Republic, and you can see how its consumption goes up quite steadily. And you have Haiti and Rwanda's consumption, oil consumption, which is way down. And it's instructive to look a little bit closer at that. So this is the Dominican Republic, again. Haiti, which goes up a little bit, and then Rwanda, which is still down. So now I'm just showing you Haiti and Rwanda so that you can see the little details. You see how Haiti's consumption goes up, down, and goes back up. And then Rwanda goes up and sort of stays a little bit steady. Do you have a guess why we have this gap here in Haiti? Embargo. Okay, so this is a very important part of Haitian's history, are the embargoes. And the embargoes have had a fairly strong impact on energy and the environment in Haiti. I think it's important to keep that in mind. As you'll see later on, so the production of energy is insufficient in Haiti. And to compensate for that, people use wood. So as you have an embargo, when you have an embargo and you have less energy available to you or to the country, then people resort to more destruction of forests. So this is the electricity consumption. Again, this the same countries minus Massachusetts. Massachusetts is not a country, but as a size. So here you have Belgium again, Switzerland, and then you have Dominican Republic, and way down Haiti and Rwanda. So the energy, the electricity consumption in Haiti is also fairly low. Here, if you look at the current electricity consumption, and you compare with the mid-'80s, more population, less consumption of electricity, okay? Which means the energy needs have to be fulfilled elsewhere. So, in general, the energy production in Haiti is a 270 kilowatts, or megawatts, sorry, the 270 megawatts. And the demand in the capital itself is about half of that. Okay, so 157. The demand within the country is 500 and some. Okay, so the electricity production is not enough to sustain the demand within the country. If you look at how electricity is produced, most of the electricity is produced by thermal plants. So import of oil to produce electricity, and then some of it, 30%, is produced by hydroelectric. Another, how do I go back here? Well, the electricity production in Haiti, both hydro and thermal, is only good enough for 10% of the population. 10% of the population and some of the time. Okay, so wood accounts for a large portion of the energy, and so because of that, you have a large import of oil. Okay, a good chunk of the oil imported goes for producing electricity. So it goes without saying that a consequence of this drought of energy is environmental. So people would cut wood to produce for cooking and for other things. So this goes to my second point. In order to do anything about the environment in Haiti, the deforestation in Haiti, one has to address the energy problems. So some notes on the environment. Deforestation, 60% in the 1920s, 60% of the forests. And now it's 1.5% of the forest left remaining. 1.5%. There were some steps into correcting these issues. There was the Environment Action Act in 1999, which was meant to reforest Haiti. It didn't go very far. There was also in 1981 an outreach project to start replanting. It did some good, but not enough, because the cutting of trees is more intense than the replanting of trees. And as a note also, when the hurricane happened in 2004, a small population was hit in Dominican Republic, and that has to do with the landscape is about the same in both countries. So what happened in Dominican Republic is that they have more trees and so less mudslides. And in Haiti, of course, because of the deforestation, a lot of people died and actually made the deforestation worse than before. So I'll skip on the telecom, but the basic idea I'd like to leave you with is that energy is very important in addressing any sort of Haiti in the 21st century. Also, that if one does anything about if one wants to do anything about the environmental issues in Haiti, then we must look back at energy and try to solve that first. And also, as a note on the communication, by putting together a robust infrastructure, communication infrastructure in Haiti, one will address many of the problems in terms of creating digital type of work, in facilitating public health. I see Clark's here. In education, facilitating education, access to content, etc., etc. So I would promote focusing on these three from the lens of the technologist. So now I'm going to pass the microphone to my colleague Michel DeGraff, who's going to go from technology back to the human factor in language. Thank you.
Just this.
Oh, there's this thing. Okay, so. Oh, you know.
So to kill time, this is my second ever PowerPoint. And the first one was due to Christina Shu, who might be here, who forced me to do it last Saturday. So bear with me. I think I can. I can do it, and I get some good help from Christina and from my girlfriend Elena. So, okay, so I think when we talk about rebuilding Haiti, we have to understand where we came from, where Haiti came from. So that's what I'll do a bit at the beginning, is to go back into history. So Erica James did a bit of that, and also Cherie and Dale. And I'm going to focus on language and linguistics as a lens onto the history of the country. And it's going to be very crucial to incorporate these notions in whatever projects we have into rebuilding Haiti, because if we don't take that into account, then we're going to rebuild a Haiti for the 5% that's always been quite well off, no matter hurricanes, earthquakes, etc. And that will become clear very soon. So let's go back to history. So 2 centuries ago, 1791-1804, that was probably the most earth-shattering event in world history. Haiti's revolution, where all men and women were declared equal. So as you can see here, you have the title of a recent PBS documentary, Égalité for All, Égalité pour tout le monde. And this event was so shattering that it had to be silenced. So this is the point that's made by Michel DeGraff in a very small book that's worth reading, especially these days, on silencing the past, power, and the making of history. Now, Aristide, when he came into power, he came out with this book, Tout monde c'est moun, everyone is human, rehearsing some of the themes that Toussaint Louverture and Dessalines, the founders of Haiti, back in the 19th century, came up with. So why was Aristide, 2 centuries after, also saying, Tout monde c'est moun, equality for all? Well, the reason is very straightforward. It's because the revolution in Haiti was never finished. The French, indeed, were kicked out. Toussaint Louverture, Dessalines, and the other soldiers fought against the French, the British, the Spaniards. They did kick them out of Haiti. But what happened is that there was a small group among the new Haitians that took the place of the French. And there is lots of literature on that. So there is a pretty clear-headed book by, again, Michel DeGraff, Haitian historian, called Haiti, State Against Nation. And this theme will keep coming back in the discussion. And even in the aftermath of the earthquake, so this is from the Boston Globe, an article from the end of last month, January 31st, 10. If you look at the part that I highlighted in yellow, the question now is whether the wealthy elite that controls the bulk of the economy will help rebuild Haiti and create a thriving middle class. 80% of Haitians live in poverty, while a handful of often light-skinned descendants of the French will rule the country's coffee and sugar plantations until Haiti declared itself independent in 1804, and other groups control most of the wealth. Okay, so that's the dilemma that we have to deal with when we try to think about rebuilding Haiti. So this will be a very complex journey that I'm going to try to take you through in a very short time. So here's a roadmap. So one, we're going to actually going to see ways in which Haiti indeed still suffer from brutal race and class-based inequities, the sort that Erica James talked about very early on. And what I'm going to focus on here is education and language and education. The fact that in Haiti, the school system has been used to replicate systems of inequities from the very beginning of Haiti's history back in 1804. Now, the earthquake, what it's done to us, it's forced us to look at this challenge, which could be turned into an opportunity if indeed we take better account of what we know of Haiti's history and of its language profile. Okay, that's what I want to do. What can we learn from history to try to rebuild a better Haiti? And the main point, if you're going to leave this room before I finish, is in item 5, that Creole, the language that all Haitians speak, has to become a key linguistic resource for the state to serve the nation, which will basically be a change of paradigm, where for the longest, the state has used the nation for its own interest, neglecting the masses of Haitians. So, and what I'm going to have to ask you to do with me is to understand the conditions of how knowledge is produced in Haiti and about Haiti, not just in Haiti, but also in places like MIT, other centers where Haiti is of interest. There is a certain ways in which production of knowledge happens that, in fact, has been reinforcing this paradigm of inequity. And I'm inviting you to take a look at that, a very hard look at that, before you even think of rebuilding Haiti. Otherwise, you're going to participate in rebuilding these inequities. Okay, so the next slide, basically this is just for show, because in Haiti, Creole is official alongside French. So the constitution that you see here, dated March 29, 1987, is in Creole. Okay? It's also in French, because as you'll see on the next slide, this is the English version. Article 5 says, all Haitians are united by a common language, Creole. That's a fact. Now, the next sentence is a non sequitur. It says, Creole and French are the official languages of the Republic. Now, if Creole is Haiti's national language, why should Creole and French be official? Of course, there is some reasons for that, because there's a very rich tradition of Haitian literature in French. We have some amazing French writers. But now, if you keep going through this constitution, you're going to see more irrationality in the way it's written. For example, in 32.1, it says that education is the responsibility of the state, etc. They must make schooling available to all free of charge. Now, what it means is that the state is responsible to educating all children. Now, let's see whether, in fact, this is happening. Okay, so in Haiti, there is this classic saying, Haitian Creole is very, lots of metaphors and images. And so the saying goes, Constitution c'est papier, bayonet c'est fait, meaning that Constitution is paper, but a bayonet is metal. What's stronger is the bayonet. And here I'm going to point out certain facts that are very pointed, that would compare to the metal of the bayonet versus the paper of the law in Haiti. So these facts actually directly contradict the Haitian's constitution. So first, French, and this is again a robust fact that you have to take into account. French is spoken fluently by some 5-10% of the population, and this is very charitable counting, at most by 900,000, while the vast majority of Haitians, at least 9 million, speak only one language, Haitian Creole. Yet in two, you also have this robust fact that there is this very general practice in Haiti for schools to teach and test in some sort of French, because of the fact that the teachers themselves are not so fluent in French. But the shortcut is that teaching often amounts to rote memorization. Okay, so now there's been efforts to solve this issue. So there was a famous Réforme Bernard back in the early 80s, and the goals were, as you see, in three: promote Creole as a language of instruction, at least in the first 3 years of education. Then transit the child into French, and the goal was that at the end of the schooling cycle, every Haitian should be bilingual in Creole and in French. And of course, it's never succeeded. First of all, it's never been implemented in the first place. And as a UN observer made clear, the failure of the Réforme Bernard was due to the fact that the state itself would spend the time from 79 to 86 sabotaging that reform in more or less open or more or less insidious ways. And the simple fact now, in fact, is that most documents in Haiti are still in French, including every birth certificate, again, which goes against the spirit of the Constitution. So what we're dealing with then is that we've gone from this unfinished revolution to a system of apartheid. And this term goes back to one of my deceased colleagues, Paul Desjardins. He died before the earthquake a few years ago. And to the fact that the vast number of Haitians are actually second-class citizens because of this language demarcation. Okay, and here you have some further facts which seem irrational, but they are not irrational from the perspective of power. All these facts get to be the way they are because you have the state and this elite with the state keeping power for themselves. So the fact known is that among nations that have been independent for more than 1 century, Haiti is the only country where the school system uses a language that is neither understood nor spoken by the general population. Okay, and in 2, you have those staggering numbers that are repeated every year. So in 2009, 23% was the success rate of the baccalaureate exam, which you have to pass to enter university. So if Desjans' last book is called accurately, Yon l'école tête en bas, dans yon pays tête en bas, an upside-down school in an upside-down country. And the reason is, of course, because you have most Haitians speaking a language that excludes them from the poles of power. So how do we move forward and try to rebuild the better school systems for all? So what I'm going to do now is to try to make you understand how rooted are entrenched these prejudices against Creole are in Haitian society. And the prejudices themselves are reinforced by scholarly work done not only in Haiti, but throughout northern countries, including the US and Europe. So what you see here is a vicious circle à la Foucault, where certain systems of power reinforce certain types of knowledge that in turn keep this power in place. So that's why, in fact, often people say, well, the Haitians, why do they are so passive and accept this sort of affairs? But in fact, the complex of forces against Creole goes beyond the borders of Haiti, and that's what we're going to see now. So we have some basic facts, say in 1, the fact that Creole languages are the results, basically, of colonization and the slave trade. Okay, and so to skip forward a bit, that in 3, other byproducts of colonization and the slave trade are those beliefs and myths about what Creole can and cannot do. Okay, and what's really clear is that these beliefs started out of necessity, out of economic necessity, because the slaves back then were basically engines, they were animals, so they could not be viewed on a par with Europeans in terms of their linguistic capacities. They had to be made inferior, so the languages had to be declared inferior, and that's what we're going to see next. Actually, this map just shows you where Creole languages, as classified by linguists, where they exist. And it's easy to see that they exist around the equator, in port areas. Now, the reason is simply because those languages track the colonial enterprise. So you should ask yourself, if Creoles were indeed some linguistic class, why would it be so parallel by this geographic distribution? So what I want to point out here is that this map should be a hint that, in fact, the term Creole doesn't have any linguistic reality. It's a sociopolitical one, and it's used like that. So the question, for example, who speaks Creole? So why does Haiti has a Creole language, but if you go to Missouri, you have Americans speaking very strange varieties of French, or if you go to Quebec, you have Quebecois speaking very strange varieties of French, strange for, say, Parisian speakers, yet these are not Creole languages. And I think this question is the same as who speaks language versus who speaks dialect. And there's this classic definition that a language is a dialect with an army and a navy. And it's the same about Creole. So you're deemed to speak a Creole language if your history is that of being oppressed by certain colonial powers. And now let's go back to this notion of discipline and norm that Foucault studied very well. So what you see here through language, through this divide between Creole and French, is the power, say, of a state to impose certain norms that if you deviate from them, then you're viewed as being inferior. And for those of you who are in literature, if you know, say, the story of The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, which I studied much better when I was co-teaching this class with, among others, a writing person, Helen Denis. So what Toni Morrison talked about very clearly is that this syndrome of this black child, Pecola, wanting blue eyes because blue eyes were imposed from without as a symbol of what's normal for her, which drove her at the end crazy. And my point is that, and this is the point that Morrison talks about very eloquently in item 2, is that what makes that sort of dimension possible is when power from outside becomes incorporated into the person's soul. And this is what happened to Pecola. And I'm going to show you that this is also the story of the Caribbean in a way. So here I'm just going to quote from Aimé Césaire, this famous author, now deceased, of Discourse on Colonialism. And it's a story in three moments. The first moment is that where he talks about this gaze, this blue gaze that imposed what's normal onto the Caribbean child. So one, Martinicans, the history books were the same as the history books of French school children. And then there's a moment of recognizing that the power from without, this normalizing gaze, becomes internal. So there was this child, this friend of him, studying our ancestors, the Gauls, had blonde hair and blue eyes. And this child, this black child, was studying it as if it were normal. And then when Aimé Césaire asked him, so why are you saying that? Of course, that's in the book. And then there's a moment of recognition, of resistance. We're Africans, and this book was written by those who colonized us. Now, what I'm going to show you is that this sense of what's normal and what's inferior also exists when it comes to attitudes towards Creoles. So what we have to do here is to do a bit of anthropology, a bit of more like archaeology. Let's look at the beginning of the word. Where did it come from? So in the highlighted part, Creole, the root is eventually from Latin, but more immediately from Portuguese and Spanish. It means raised in the home. And the term was used to distinguish between entities which were local to the Caribbean, to the New World, not imported from Europe or from Africa. And that was supposed to be used as a measure of improvement, so to speak. So for example, so in 3, you have the Creole blacks, the Creole Africans, those who were born in the West Indies. And someone like Moreau de Saint-Méry made it clear that blacks, by becoming Creole, they were improved. So as you see in 2, domesticity by whites has embellished the black species. And in 3, for all tasks, it is the Creole slaves that are preferred. Their worth is always a quarter more than that of the Africans. So there is even a quantification of the superiority of Creole. And then comes 1804, and Dessalines subverted this sort of world order by declaring, say, in 3, that everyone in Haiti, no matter what color you are black. And something that Dessalines did was to prevent any white person, any European, to own land in Haiti. Actually, this was one reason why the US came to Haiti in 1915 to occupy us, to change the constitution, to remove that clause in 2 from the constitution, to allow Haiti to become, so for Americans to be able to buy and invest in businesses in Haiti. And this was also clear in 4 that Creole was to be Haiti's national language. So this is a folk story. No one knows if it's really true, but according to Diane's book, Dessalines would ask a Haitian something in French, and if she replied, he would kill you because you weren't Haitian enough. You had to speak Creole. Okay, so this is pushing Creole to an extreme. But beyond Dessalines, the fact is that this normalizing gaze against Creole has remained. And this is not surprising. So in 1, I just mentioned the fact that language and linguistics, like any other field of human scholarship, does play a key role in the creation, maintenance, and transmission of power. And we have to be aware of that when we embark on any projects in Haiti. Okay, so now I have a few age-old myths about French versus Creole. Now, those quotes are interesting because they go back to the 19th century. And those quotes, you find them both in writings by Haitian and writings by Americans and French and Martinican, etc. Okay, so if you just take a quick sample here, so you have Aimé Césaire, the same Aimé Césaire who resisted the bluest gaze from his little friend saying, our ancestors, the Gauls, he himself thinks that his native Creole is in a stage of immediacy, unable to express abstract ideas. And Albert Vollman, the same American linguist, actually French American linguist in Indiana, has an even more dire his prognostic for Creoles, that they are destined to die because they are so structurally poor, that the more they are used in different settings, they will absorb more and more French, and then they will eventually disappear into French. So let's keep these because of time. But But all of these, again, are about trying to show that Creoles are inferior. And you have even quotes from journalists, like in 3 from Reuters. Creole is Haiti's language of broken French. And you have very fancy literary magazine like the TLS saying that Creole is African grammar with French words. And in 19th century, Creole is for those with limited intelligence. And then 82, Newsweek, Creoles are the missing linguistic fossils, which means that me as a Haitian speaker, when I speak Creole, I resemble the first Homo sapiens. I'm a primitive being. So imagine. So, but that's the claim. That's the claim. But now I'm going to go quickly over these slides because these are mostly linguistic analysis where one can show actually pretty straightforwardly, looking at, say, a Haitian dictionary versus an English one, you can actually show that by the standard diagnostics for Creoleness, English would actually look more like a Creole than Haitian Creole. And here, this is thanks to my friend Dale. He reminded me that in the Planet of the Apes, language was used by the apes dominators as a measure for whether humans were of the same status cognitively as them. So when they discovered that there were some humans, the character played by Charlton Heston, that he could speak language, they had to hide that in order to keep him as a second-class citizen, so to speak. So what you see here is the very same syndrome, that linguists and others refusing to accept that Creole is a full-fledged language exactly because of the economic correlates of keeping the Africans and now the monolingual speakers under domination. Okay. So let's move forward. So where do we go? So this is at the bottom of the slide. So where do we go from here? So now that we have this knowledge, where do we go from that? Where do we go from the earthquake of January 12? And here I'm inspired by Howard Zinn, who recently passed away. So I've been reading his comic version of his history book. And he says very clearly, and I believe him, that there's a tendency to think that what we see in the present has to continue. But we forget often that we've been astonished by the sudden crumbling of institutions. And in the case of Haiti, the crumbling on January 12 has been literal, and we have a chance to rebuild. And in 3, I quote Jean Casimir to say that in this rebuilding, we have to imagine a Haiti that goes beyond the gaze of powerful countries. Okay? And so the next slides are to show you that, in fact, it is possible to educate and educate well using Haiti's national language. So I'm going to just use 2 test studies. So one is with my dear colleague Yves Desjean. He was 81, one of our doyens of linguistics, and his son Frislair. They run this school in Port-Royal, and this school is exclusively in Creole, and it's called Saint-Ouen-Tiflet. And I remember the first time I saw this school, I was floored, because when I was growing up in Haiti, I had to use French in my school. And people would often joke that the French teachers, they teach you to be silent in French, because you know that if you speak French and you make any mistake, you're going to be laughed at. In this school, the kids were so free. It was an amazing experience. And another such school that I'm in a way, I'm more familiar with now because of, so there is Chris Lowe in the audience now, who's the co-director of the school, is the L'École Communautaire Matenois, where again, Creole is at the basis of the kids' teachings. And as you see here, those are very happy kids, and they're producing books in Creole, and they're actually exchanging books with kids here at the Fierro de Street School, where my own little boy goes. And this is a very different paradigm for education. And in fact, it's a different paradigm in Haiti, but it's a normal paradigm for education. So if we go back to 1, this is from UNESCO 53 on education, and there's this basic principle that education is best carried out in the mother tongue of the pupil. So basically, the use of Creole in Haitian schools does allow you to tap into children's creativity and put them at ease in the classroom, unlike what I went through when I was a kid. And and basically also it protects and promotes the Haitian children's rights. And it is a big step away from the system of rote memorization that in Haiti is so popular, because if your teacher doesn't know French well, all he can do, or all she can do, is to force you to just memorize French text. Now, what can MIT do to help in this context? Well, let's learn from kids. So in one, I mentioned before this project between Haitian kids and American kids at Fairweather, which has been extremely inspiring to see those kids exchanging books and each group learning from the other, growing from the other. And of course, one can imagine this happening at a large scale at MIT. There are all these programs here. So thanks to Dale Joachim, he brought into my attention the work being done by Klopfer and his colleagues. And as you can see, if you read 3 and 4, there's a framework already in place here at MIT to actually bring in this sort of collaboration. Actually, if you just read the last quote in 3 and 4, I'll let you read it for yourself. You can see that there is already a framework to create this sort of collaboration. So where are we going? Well, this is just a summary. And the key issue here is that in Haitian Creole, nous, when you say côté nous prale, where are you going? Or comment nous ye, where you plural are, you cannot talk about the you plural without including yourself. So côté nous prale means where are you going, meaning where am I going? We have to go together. And that's what Creole is all about. So if you're going to teach in Creole, you make sure that you bring along everybody with you. And this photo to end is from my brother. He sent it to me this morning, and it was taken yesterday in our neighborhood, Delmar 33. And what's striking here in this picture is that, as you can see, this is totally destroyed, but there is a note on one of the rubbles, and it says, "The artist is not dead. Call blah 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 for your shirt printing jobs." You know, and to me that's Haiti. That we might be shaken, but we're still here. Okay. Okay, my job is actually to ask for questions. I forgot. Okay, so and you have to come down to the microphone to ask your questions.
Right, thank you very much. I haven't actually been to Haiti, so I've learned a lot in the last hour. Thank you very much for that. Originally, I'm from Africa, and I happen to live in Barcelona, in Spain, where they have a dual language issue which is very, very intense. And many of the issues that you were talking about, I've heard applied to the Catalan and the Spanish language. And there are a number of things that, if you like, we can discuss later on. But what I'm interested in is really focusing on relief. And this is wonderful background information. But the question I have for the panel is, what practical steps, next steps, now can we take? These are framing issues, but to get there, we're going to have to take small practical steps. What will those steps be? Thank you.
So Erica has to leave, so I'm going to let her. Do you want to take that question, or yeah?
Yeah, go ahead. No, if you have to leave, go. I mean, well, why don't you take this one? And then, if anyone has a question for me, please come down and ask it quickly. Well, why don't you take that one? Yeah.
So relief efforts. What can we do right now? The organization the initiative that I'm working with right now is what has been particularly helpful is to use our networks on the ground to figure out what they need. So while you hear we need tents, or we need food, or we need whatever we need, it's always at a level it's fairly general. So the way we've been working, I'll just give you one example. We had a request come in that said, we need surgical masks. We need a whole pile of surgical masks. I thought, well, they are doing there's a lot of medical needs on the ground. Maybe that's why they need surgical masks. I don't know why they need surgical masks. We found surgical masks, a whole pallet of them, And we didn't send them all, but we sent a good portion of them with a shipment that we had. Turns out they need surgical masks for the medical work that they were doing on the ground, but they also, because of the stench that was there in Port-au-Prince. So the best way I found to respond to the needs is to check with the people on the ground. Because who knows, they could have already had a whole pallet of surgical masks delivered by some organization. So having the people on the ground dictating to us what they need and delivering those medical supplies and food and in those areas, I think at this point, for me, that's the best that we can do in the moment.
If I can segue on that, so I think the most immediate needs have to do with medical care, and actually there are lots and lots of doctors and nurses in Haiti now, and if you happen to be in this field, people are being amputated, people need urgent medical care. There are lots of people who are still not getting the proper care. So a couple of weeks ago, there was a talk by Paul Former from Partners in Health, and the figures that he brought were just overwhelming. So in the most immediate future, I think that's what one should think about, is how to help with the physical health needs and food. And there's going to be the rainy season. There is a need for tents. These are extremely short-term needs. I think in our case, and I can ask for myself, I'm not a doctor. I'm a linguist. So I care about education. And for me, that's a core need if Haiti will be rebuilt better. And lots of the deaths that were caused by the earthquake were due to bad education. In fact, we heard recently this Dr. Alexandre, talking about his own experience in Jacmel, and he said that many people who died is because they had no clue what to do when they felt that the earth was shaking. Instead of getting out, they stayed in and they were crushed. So that's the problem of education. So yeah.
So let me add to that a little bit. I'm going to take a slightly different angle. Haiti is a problem of intervention in its history. There's been a lot of interventions. And helping Haiti is a good thing. And sort of bringing short-term relief is an important thing. But I'll piggyback on something that Erica said earlier, which is she mentioned sort of the victim, being a victim, being vulnerable, and the state of being a client for a long time. This is a problem in Haiti. So Haiti, for a long time, has developed, not only at the individual level, but at state level, this image or this this capacity of being a continuous client. So I think in terms of helping Haiti, it's important to give on the short term. I think this is, the first cycle would have to be, shelter, food, and clothing, and things of the sort. But I think to be more sustainable, we have to think of building capacity. So we have to think about types of interventions that can build capacity amongst the Haitians themselves. Okay, so micro digital businesses. We had a person who came through this building last week, and she was going to Haiti to create businesses using cell phones. So she was bringing the cell phones or these small computers into refugee camps where people could work and actually do work that pertained to companies here. So she was building capacity. I think the fabrication lab that Amy is heading has to do with building capacity. So it's a lab, it's a generic lab that will build capacity, sort of technological capacity there. So I think it's important when we think about helping Haiti, helping in some ways. I don't really like the word helping. But when we're engaged in this crisis in some ways, to think about, one, how to break the cycle, or how to not perpetuate the cycle of dependency. This is very, very important, or else we're helping for a short term. And then two, to think about how do we create a sustainable engagement or a sustainable entity for the 21st century.
Just very quickly, I don't know, can you all hear me? I think one of the key things that's going to be an issue is the fact that you've had a massive exodus of, hundreds of thousands of people from Port-au-Prince to the provinces. The provinces historically have not been built up in the same way that they should have. Haiti has had a problem with with a centralized government, and most interventions focused on the capital, Port-au-Prince. So in the provinces, you have a number of cities that are, let's say the infrastructures are not what they should be, not only to support the populations that are there, because many people left the countryside to find, the livelihood in the capital. They have now, if they survived, have returned. But then secondly, you have new populations that may not be from these provincial cities originally, but went there because they thought that they could find aid. So some of the aid interventions, if you want to help, should be directed to cities outside the capital. Another issue is going to be tent cities. Are these going to become permanent refugee camps or not? There needs to be plans put in place to actually think about how you're going to relocate and resettle people eventually. And currently where they're located, not all of them may be in the safest of areas. People tended to just squat where they could. Are they in floodplains or not? So that's another thing that needs to be considered. For me, security is going to be the important thing. As I mentioned during my talk, you have those 4,000 people who are out of prison. Some of them may not have been there, legitimately, but there are a number of them who were involved in attempts to destabilize security in the country. There has to be ways to try to provide security on the ground, but especially for people who are in these tent cities. Trauma is going to be, I think, a long-term, many-decade issue, and that's something to talk about another day. But I think that's the one that gets forgotten the most, in terms of mental health, not only in Haiti but in other countries. So I think that would be one of the things that I would focus on alongside infrastructural issues. And now I got to go. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Wendy. In terms of the longer-term rebuilding efforts, particularly around the development of the energy infrastructure, I was going to originally ask about the environmental restoration, but as you pointed out, the energy really has to be dealt with first. So in terms of that, do you know where the development aid and financial resources will be coming from? I mean, the reality is that money will have to come in from somewhere to work with Haitians, as you say, not to come in as interventionists, for people to come in with their plans of how Haiti should be. But do you know where the money will be coming from and how that will be coordinated for the long-term development of energy and environmental initiatives?
I don't.
Okay, so maybe do you know, or where do you think it? Where do you think it should come from? How should the U.S. be involved, for example?
Right. I think any foreign aid is going to be dictated by the country's own needs. So I don't think so. Well, if you look at recent documents, I think I didn't put one in my slides, but there are some documents of some work, work already established by the Inter-American Development Bank, where the Haitian government in 1999 had outlined a fairly extensive plan of restoring power. And it had to do with coming up with new means of power generation, and also restoring the capacity of the old generators. So the issue with power generation in Haiti, so it has four power plants, two hydroelectric, and then two thermal, and then many other thermal by private enterprises. And one of the problems is distribution. So 50% of the power is lost in distribution. So recreating, also sort of restoring the distribution infrastructure is very important. Also, a simple fact in Haiti is that the power goes to 1/8 of the population, but actually a quarter of the population has electricity. That other eighth are people that just tap into the infrastructure and they figured out how to just get free electricity. And so this is another problem that needs to be addressed. So I think there's a lot of interim steps that can be done. I don't know where the money is going to come from. I would hope that if large-scale investments are made in Haiti, then it'd be made on solar, on wind power, because you have trade winds going through Haiti, and so also solar power. Actually, the solar power and the wind power, more the solar power, were included in the Haitian government report to the IDB.
Unfortunately, we have time for one more question.
Super. Oops. I pretty much break everything I touch, so this seems on par. Thank you. That was a tremendous amount of background. I have another broad topic that I'd really appreciate your comments on, and more just so we can, someone like me who's never been to Haiti, can understand more about the background and kind of how we got to where we are and our way forward. And that topic is broadly religion. It seems many of the discussions that we have when it comes to the way forward and background here at MIT, at Harvard, I was just in DC and at Georgetown, it tends to be very secular, but everything I see in the media keeps reporting Haiti as being this very, very, very Catholic society. And I'm wondering whether or not you've seen or you are churches, are they held in Creole, or is that also still in French, or is it in the language of whichever missionary group happens to be there? Is this like Central America, where there's lots of little missionary pots, or is this more like, other countries where you have one sort of main group? Can you guys just kind of comment generally on this, and also how we might use that as this is, I imagine, a network on the ground, and how we might be able to leverage those institutions if they're useful, or if you think they need to be cast out. Thanks.
The myth that most Haitians are Catholic is, well, it's a bit of a myth to it. In fact, someone the other day was joking that in Haiti you have something like 50% of Catholics, 50% of Protestants, and 100% of Vodou believers, because Vodou is quite a powerful force in Haiti, and even if you don't practice it, it's really part of the culture. It underlies even the Catholic masses, where now you have lots of drumming. And in terms of language, in fact, the Bible was probably one of the first documents to be translated into Creole by missionaries. So way before there was an official orthography, which came in the 80s, there was a version of the Bible in Creole. And actually, Yves Desjans, whom I mentioned earlier, he used to be a Catholic priest. And one of his jobs with his brother Paul, they were both priests, was to translate the Bible in Creole, which was back then a radical step. But now it's pretty accepted. Alison, you had a question that you wanted to ask?
Hold on one second, because we've got a couple more angles on this.
This is a very interesting, important question. So I was once at a church gathering where, the congregation had their church, and in the afternoon they had a debate on whether, at that time, whether Creole should be admitted in church. Okay, whether Creole should be admitted in church. And it was a very, very lively debate. And so some of the arguments were, well, if you want your children to do well abroad, why do you keep them locked in this Creole? And then the other side, of course, well, this is our language, this is how we speak, and this is amongst Haitians. So it's a very it's an ongoing discussion. But when you hear a sermon, and often you hear a sermon, it starts with very proper French. Okay, it starts with very proper French, or proper French 100 years ago, and then And then when the preacher has to say something important, it quickly switches to Creole. And then it flows. And it flows and it flows and it flows, and the information, you can tell there's a direct connection. And then all of a sudden it retracts to this proper French thing. And then it goes, and then you'd have another cycle of going to Creole and back. So, and I think you'd see the same thing in political speeches and engagements. So it's sort of, you can see that French has been used as a sort of an official language, or is trying to keep its place as an official language. But when people have to communicate, they communicate in Creole.
Let me just touch on the network question, because I've been working with the missionary networks in Haiti. I know that the Catholic Charities networks are strong too, and I know that the missionary networks are having some of the similar problems that the NGOs are having, other more secular NGOs are having, in that they're trying to connect their networks better now on the ground. They have to, So which networks are the best, or which networks can we use to build on? And does it matter if it's Catholic or it's Protestant or it's voodoo? I'm not sure if it matters. My father's Catholic, my mother's Protestant. We did both. I think it matters how they're doing their work. And I think it matters how long the work has been done and the track record. So, for example, missionaries on La Gonave, for example, white American missionaries started a hospital there in the 60s. And the idea has been that they would have a nurses training program there as well, and they would train Haitians to then take over the hospital. So the idea was, what I liked about this one network was that the idea was that it would be Haitian run, and they would let go. So there was a point where they decided to let Haitians control the hospital, the training, everything. So I think that's maybe what you look for, and track record. But many of these Christian networks have been in place for decades, for a long time.
Just a last remark on this question is that if you look at the American occupation of Haiti in the early 1900s, it was forbidden to do voodoo, to practice voodoo at that time. So it's well documented that the Haitians at that time mapped a lot of the voodoo god and goddesses to the Catholic saints. So in the Catholic Church, you'd have the saints, but the same saints are very well mapped to, and they mapped very well actually, to voodoo god and goddess. So people would practice both at the same time.
So my question is about translation, and also the seeing with Haitian eyes aspect you mentioned. And so basically there's a lot of effort and discussion about translating existing projects, interfaces, software. And so it strikes me that translating the language of American projects from English to Creole does not translate the gaze of the project. And so I'm wondering if there's any way to implement these existing solutions that's actually in a Haitian gaze.
That's a deep question. But there are Haitian authors who write in English, right? So if you consider, for example, Edwidge Danticat, so what she writes in English do convey the Haitian gaze. So if you take one of her first books, Crick Crack, right? That one of her, yeah. So there it was about her growing up in Haiti and while she was waiting to come to the States. So there you have the Haitian gaze conveyed through the English language. So it's in many ways it would depend on what you choose to translate. Of course, if you're going to translate something like The Magic Island, by Seabrook, that would be a totally different gaze than Danticat's gaze, you see. So I think it's a matter of choice. And I think before well, or alongside translating English works into Creole, there's such a huge reservoir of Haitian stories that have not been written. So, for example, Yves Dejean, this linguist that I mentioned before a few times, he has a huge collection of recordings of tales. Actually, some of it Dale helped transcribe, not transcribe, put on new media to preserve. So, but I do hear your question is to be careful about making sure that the Haitian gaze is not superseded by the foreigner's gaze. But I think by choosing the text and by looking also at Haitian stories, one can take care of that, hopefully.
Good evening. My name is Lochner Bayes. I am a practicing engineer here in the state of Massachusetts, originally from Haiti. I migrated here 35 years ago. It's difficult for me to understand. I cannot even comprehend that the place where I grew up, most of the monument that reminds me of my childhood no longer exists. But I saw it coming when I went back to back in 1983, and I look at Port-au-Prince and what was happening in the hillside. I commented with a number of people about the danger that we were creating. Nobody was listening. In 1994, when Mr. Aristide was going back, I had spoken briefly with the Minister of Planning, who would have been then the Minister of Plan, and explained to him that we are creating a problem here. No one was listening. But I had my ideas on a piece of paper. When this disaster happened, I said, oh my God, here's exactly what I didn't want to see happening. So I crafted a few ideas. This time I said I will put them in writing. I put them in about 21 ideas, and I started circulating, sending them to a number of friends. And it's going around because I have been getting feedback. I think I've sent a copy to these organizations last night after I became aware of this conference here. And I don't know if you receive it yet, but it is circulating around. And Mr. Joachim, I commend you for your presentation about energy. This is Haiti's problem. And if you read my plan, you will see the importance, the focus that I place on this particular item, energy. I spoke about wind energy, solar energy. Haiti is solar country, hydro energy, and bio energy. But my question to you is that Haiti is reportedly, and this has been done since 1975, has a huge oil reserves. Why is it that we have not been exploring the vast amount of oil reserve, which, to my understanding, is equivalent to that of Saudi Arabia? Why is it that we haven't tapped into that resource? That's my question.
Well, okay. Well, thanks so much for your comments. And so on the why, I don't know. What I've heard is before the earthquake, American companies were looking for oil around Haiti, and that's well documented. And so, I mean, there's a lot of folklore about how that might have caused the earthquake, but it's well documented that American companies and other companies were looking at possibilities around Haiti, and that the earthquake might have caused. I think this is mostly for natural gas, right? That it might cause a crack at a place that would release natural gas that could now be harvested. And apparently now geologists are looking into that to see if there are ways to tap into that, the natural gas coming out of around Haiti as source of energy. But in terms of the oil, I don't know.
So maybe she had the last question, and I think we should close. Michel is being very patient. Okay, so do you want to ask?
Can I take it off?
Yes.
Hi, my name's Alexa. I would like to know when the last earthquake was.
January 12th.
No, before.
Oh, before that. Oh, before that. Okay, it was in 1750. A big one, the really big one, was in the 18th century. In 17, there were two, 1751 and one later, and they hit Port-au-Prince pretty badly, and Port-au-Prince was destroyed back then. But it was a very different Port-au-Prince with much fewer people than what we had in January.
So, how many earthquakes?
Total? In the 19th century. Yeah.
There was the big earthquake which destroyed the city of Cape Haitian in 1842.
That's right, in the 19th century, yeah. And when I was growing up, there were always small earthquakes in Haiti. I remember feeling all the time, small ones, but nothing so big. So thank you for your question. So we have to stop now. Thank you.